Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affairs Analysis for 10th April 2020, and these are the articles that we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled A Time for Extraordinary Action. This article is regarding the impact of COVID-19, especially on the economic front, and the difficulties posed by the present lockdown situation. In this present article, the writers of the article are using a unique method to calculate the impact of COVID-19, and this method is called the input-output method. So what this model essentially does is, it takes into account intermediate consumption. Say for example, you want to buy a packet of chips. So one packet of potato chips will have to move through various phases to reach your hand. So for example, in this present context, you have to start with potato cultivation. So there is the involvement of agricultural sector. Later there is an involvement of food processing sector. Then after that is completely packaged, you need logistics to ensure that it is distributed widely. It reaches a wholesaler, and finally it reaches your neighborhood retail stores, or commonly called as kirana stores. So this is the entire process. So in each of this sector, you will be calculating wages, profit, interest rates, etc. and all the overheads to ensure that you are not missing out any sector. This is the advantage of this input-output method. The second advantage is that when you are calculating sector-wise across the supply chain, even if there is an impact on one particular sector, you will see the impact it will have on other sectors. Say for example, if your transportation is stuck, this is one of the most important link in the chain, and if there is an impact on logistics sector, you will see that the whole system would be crumbling. So this is the method we are using to analyze the impact of COVID-19 on our economic systems. Various scenarios were designed by the authors in this particular context. So according to their calculation, we would be losing around 7% of our GDP, that is 17 lakh crores, based on this input-output method. If we lose around 13 output work days. So basically what the author is trying to say is, if there is a lockdown of 13 productive days, we will be losing around 7% of our GDP, that is 17 lakh crores. Similarly, if we lose 67 working days, we will be losing 33% of our GDP, that is 73 lakh crores. And similarly, if we are locking ourselves down for 47 and 27 days respectively, when I say 27 days, 27 output worth of days. So we will be losing in those particular scenarios 13% for 27 days and 23% of our GDP for 47 days. These are the respective figures. So the bottom line is this: we cannot afford to lock down our entire population without having economic consequences. This is a very linear way of interpreting our economy, and most of the input-output analysis are very limited in their models because they do not allow for any feedback effects. What do you mean by feedback effects? They assume that output commences whenever this lockdown is lifted, and economic activity will commence from the point where it has left off. So that is not the truth, because we cannot afford to lift out or lock down entirely. And as we have seen in the case of our potato chips example, there are various sectors which are closely associated with each other. Now that kind of a production pattern is not possible unless and until we have a clear outline on how this COVID-19 would pan out. So the authors of this article are suggesting that apart from the already given measures in the form of public distribution systems, or postponement of revenue and tax collections, or immediate relief in cash and kind to the poor are necessary, but they are not sufficient. We need to ramp up our efforts in dealing with this COVID-19 crisis. So it is critical to preserve the productive capacities in the Indian economy across the country. What do you mean by this? Government must redesign its fiscal policy and leave the budget that was passed this year, and they have to cut down on their unnecessary expenditure, prioritize their expenditures accordingly. The government must also be in a position to brace itself for a medium term impact of this COVID-19 crisis, because this is here to stay for another 1 year. So this is the gist of this article. Personally, I feel that even though the analysis provided in this particular article is very clear, the solution offered has little clarity about how we go about our financial resources. Yes, they did suggest that we have to put in more money into the hands of the public, but it did not explicitly mention what are the sources of these funds. The second article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled A Double Whammy for India Gulf Economic Ties. So, this present COVID-19 crisis has shown its impact on India Gulf relations on two fronts. One, it is regarding the oil prices, and secondly, it is about the Indian diaspora in the Gulf countries. The oil war between Saudi Arabia and Russia, it has caused each and every member of the OPEC or the countries which have a significant oil share in the world trade